Right, hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Borough Briggs Beat. We're in full Technicolor festive mode today. So our special guest today, we trailed it. We said we had two special guests coming on. It wasn't Santa and it wasn't Rudolph, but it's Allan Hale, the men's first team manager, and his trusty assistant Stefan Laird. How you doing, guys?
All good. I think we're about the same weight as Santa, so there's some resemblance there, I think. So yeah.
Right, so we're going to get into it. We're recording this before the Stirling game, so we won't talk too much about the Stirling game, but just wanted to find out a wee bit more about you. What makes you tick? What makes the partnership tick? Obviously things are going great at the moment, and just about yourselves as individuals and how you go about things. Give the fans a wee bit of an insight that they don't always maybe see on a match day. How did you meet? And this sounds like a edition of Love Island, but how did you meet in a footballing sense? When was your first contact?
2020, was it? Was it 2020? I think it's
all blurred into one now.
Yeah. You not got that date etched in your mind? Was it love at first sight in a coaching sense?
Well, it was a straight. There was no first sight because of COVID.
Yeah.
So
it was COVID times, during COVID times. So it started with it was meant to be a 10-minute phone call that ended up being well over 2-hour phone call about the opportunity that was being presented at Huntly at the time, with me going in as manager, and Stefan was someone that had always had earmarked in terms of joining my coaching staff. Funnily enough, we didn't know each other before the phone call came.
Right,
we'd never met in person.
You'd never met? I mean, were you aware of each other in a footballing sense?
Yeah, so Stefan was manager of Aberdeen Ladies at the time when I was manager of Keith, going back like 2016, 17, something along that lines. And we always trained. I think either you were on the slot before we trained or after the slot that we trained. I can't remember what it was. So, I'd always stayed behind and kind of watched Stefan's sessions.
And were you aware of this, Stefan, that he was watching your coaching?
No, we knew there was somebody peering through the fence, and we'd made several concerning reports.
But the police didn't act upon them, no?
No.
So at that point, you when the opportunity got to Huntly, you were already thinking Stefan was the person that you quite liked to?
Yeah, I definitely wanted him part of the management team. And then obviously, things kind of accelerated quite quickly because the management team and the coaches that I had worked with previously decided that, due to personal and work commitments at the time, that they couldn't come in. Stefan, regardless of whether they did, Stefan was always someone that I always wanted to come in and be part of the team, just based on, what I'd seen, what I'd heard, and kind of what I look for, as a member of my coaching staff. They then decided that they couldn't commit, with the travel just due to their personal commitments. So, I was like, well, I know I want Stefan anyway, so it makes sense that, we can just go in it together. So I'll make sure that I meet him, make sure that we have a chat. Obviously it was COVID, so we couldn't meet in person, as he said.
Right,
but
okay.
Yeah, we had a 2-hour chat or something.
Yeah.
Then,
followed by many 2-hour chats.
I was going to say, I can imagine there's quite a lot of 2-hour chats.
Still to this day, on a daily basis. But I knew within the first 10 minutes that initial conversation that he was someone that, we could work really well together, and over the years, I think that's. And
I suppose it's got to be more than just football philosophy where you connect. You got to connect maybe in terms of sense of humour, outlook on life, and things like that. It's not just about the football, is it? When it's a partnership.
Yeah, I think the personalities have to align to your aspirations, for what you see within the game and what your beliefs are. I think our personalities are aligned, and certainly in terms of the work ethic and the desire to be the best version of ourselves that we can be, and I think we work really well together. It's not good cop, bad cop. It's we both take that role in equal responsibility, I think, but
sometimes at the same time.
Stefan's smiling, yeah.
Sometimes at the same time, yeah. But no, I think for me, it's I can safely say that I've found the one guy that regardless of what happens in our careers and how many jobs we get sacked from or how many jobs we take on, for me, someone that I want to be by my side for the rest of my career.
Excellent.
And so credit to him for.
So Stefan's a keeper, as you say.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Very much in a coaching sense.
Obviously that's what I meant. And it was the same for you. I mean, Stefan, when you spoke to Allan, and were you looking to get into? I mean, obviously you were managing Aberdeen Ladies, but were you looking for a next step into coaching someone else?
I mean, through loads of different departments and playing, and then done community coaching, academy coaching. Then went into women's football, was sort of going back into sort of men's junior football, which was transitioned back across. So yeah, no, it was a great opportunity, but it was the unknown. I mean, obviously I liked what Allan said to me, and I pretty much echo everything that he said there about it so far. But you don't, in terms of the getting to know each other, really, you don't know that until you get on the training pitch and you actually see what the people are like. And like Allan says, maybe after half an hour of the first training session, this is...
Yeah, was it quite clear the minute you started working together that it just worked and you connected?
Absolutely. I think both of us know what a structured training session looks like, and I think it was going on to the training pitch the first session, bearing in mind that we'd been in post 4 to 6 months, I think.
Yeah, it's some horrific.
And we'd never met each other.
Right.
So we'd been on Zoom calls, we'd been on the phone, planning all these training sessions. And
met the players on Zoom.
Yeah,
had the first team night out on Zoom.
Oh, right. That was strange. I mean, COVID was strange days, and just on a human level, but in the footballing sense, it added another layer of complexity to an already quite complex job.
Yeah, I think you're the management team of a football club, and you've never met the players, you've never met the board. You're 6 months into the job. You're trying to have that communication, so you're building up that relationship with the players. But that all changes when you go on the training pitch, because we know what we want from a player that plays for us. We know what we want in terms of personality. We know what we want in terms of commitment. We know what we want in terms of their work ethic and how they are in terms of how they act about the place. And yeah, you painted up a picture of someone maybe on Zoom call, but then the reality on the training pitch was somewhat maybe different. And there was a lot to change. But yeah, I think, going back to your initial question, the first 15, 20 minutes of the training session, it was like, this guy is definitely the right choice. And, I'm glad he echoes that sentiment.
That's good. You do see that in management a lot where partnerships stay together as, football management. A lot of boys end up getting the sack, but they pop up then at other teams and they always take the same, or more often or not, take the same assistant with them as well. And I suppose that's just because you get such a close bond and a close working relationship.
Yeah, it's just trust. I think like with me being a manager, you've got to delegate a lot of things to your support staff, because it's impossible to do everything on your own, and the job is so time consuming. It's very much a full-time job that overshadows your own full-time job in many ways. And you've got to make a lot of sacrifices with missed family time and occasions and that sort of thing. And for me, I can't do my job if I don't have someone like Steph and Gordon and Robbie and that as well, that if you can't delegate things to where you just trust them and just leave them to go and do the job because you can trust them to do it, it just doesn't work. And with Stefan, that trust is there. I trust him immensely, and the job that he does and the output and the quality of his work is there for everyone to see. So yeah, for me, I've definitely found that someone that we trust, and hopefully the partnership can continue for years to come.
Brilliant. And at Huntly, just briefly, a team that was struggling in the Highland League, lower end of the Highland League, but you took them and you were challenging at the top end after a short period of time. So was that just your philosophy? You just implemented the same philosophy that you have done at Elgin?
Yeah. That's our beliefs. That's how we believe that the game should be played, and it's very much a front foot approach. It's attacking football. We will attack. We like to play good football, but it wasn't easy at the start. Stefan will tell you that we still talk about it to this day, that
that'd been a great documentary.
Yeah. We still talk about it to this day. There was one game in particular that was like it was like go to war, go to the trenches discussion, and it was we'd obviously came out the COVID times. There was still no supporters on the ground, but was it Fraserburgh United that we'd played in a pre-season friendly, and I just left Fraserburgh United obviously the few months beforehand to take over. And they absolutely battered us. It was I can't remember what the score was. 4-0. It was 4-0 or something like that. But
it's obviously etched in your mind.
Yeah, but
I know who Fraserburgh United were before that day, so I remember it well.
Yeah, but it was 4-0, but it was as comfortable as it can be, which was a real eye opener, considering they were a first division junior team, and we were the Highland League team. But there was a massive gulp a golf, sorry,
Yeah.
for the wrong reasons.
Maybe a massive gulp
you
as
know.
well once you saw the score.
Yeah, there's plenty of massive gulps during that 90 minutes, that's for sure. But yeah, after that game, you know, we had just decided that, you know, from this day forward, we were going to rip it up. And I think within 2 weeks, 5 players had left the squad.
Yeah,
and
2 weeks has been generous.
Right.
Like between 2 hours.
Right.
There was a couple that had been ripped up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was just, you know, let's just rip us up and do things our way. And, you know, if we have to go through a period of, you know, difficult times in the short term, you know, for long-term games, and that's what we'll do. And that's exactly what happened. And, you know, year on year, we got a cup final, and, you know, there's still a tinge of regret at not winning that one, you know, being 2-0 up. But, you know, that's the nature of football and the small margins. But, you know, in essence, you're one penalty kick away from winning the club's first trophy in however many years it was. And, you know, the highest league finish, highest point total, you know, within a decade or whatever it was really good. So, and we built a really close bond with the players and, you know, the people behind the scenes. And it was a great club. You know, they were great for us. And I'd like to think that they can turn around and say that we were equally as good to them.
Yeah, aye.
But yeah, the opportunity came here, and it certainly wasn't one that we were going to turn down.
Yeah, aye. When the opportunity came up at Elgin, I mean, what were your initial thoughts? Because Elgin at that point were bottom of the league, clearly not in a great place, and, you know, the fear was, you know, dropping back down in the Highland League. But was that always, you know, a challenge you were up for? And that didn't phase you coming into a club in that state?
No, you know, for us, we back ourselves. You know, we put a lot of work in. You know, and we back that the work that we do is sufficient. And yeah, you know, we knew it'd be difficult, but we'd done our research. We watched a lot of games. You know, we both were up till 2-3 in the morning, and, you know, phoning each other at 2-3 in the morning. You know, watching footage and going through the same things. But, you know, we just felt it was a squad that had a core of, you know, really good ability there. They needed a bit of structure, they needed a bit of guidance, they needed some support, and they needed belief and confidence installed into them. And yeah, it wasn't easy again at the start. You know, the first 3 to 4 weeks were really difficult. But again, was it the you could talk.
No, there was a lot of good phrases used about. You obviously speak to other people as well, and you know, doomed was a word that was thrown around a lot.
Okay.
Career killer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was thrown. Was
had that a few times.
thrown
Yeah,
around a lot. A lot of scoffing, a lot of laughing, a lot of who do they think they are? They can go in. They, you know, it's never going to work. And but like Alan said, with the research that we'd done, we knew that we could do it. What we didn't know again is what is inside the dressing room. You know, we could see them on the pitch and obviously come up and, you know, we're best disguises and watch them live and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And stood beside the supporters and pretended I was on holiday and asked about what it was like here and all that kind of stuff. But you don't know what's inside the dressing room, and obviously once you find out what's in the dressing room, then you really have got an idea of how far you can go and how quickly you can go there.
And you did say, I think, sorry Steph, you did say quite early on that it wasn't a case of just going into survival mode and changing your philosophy and being defensive and just trying to grind out points and victories. You went for your philosophy straight off the bat.
No, not quite straight off the bat. No. I mean, things were.
We underestimated how.
Yeah.
We, rightly or wrongly so, believe we can win every game. Doesn't matter who it's against.
Yeah.
There's a way to beat anybody. Doesn't mean you should beat them, but you can beat them. And that's why football is the biggest sport in the world. So we probably underestimated the lack of that feeling within the club at the time. And, you know, certainly after about 7 or 8 minutes of the East Fife game, we were very aware of where the players were mentally. And there was like a situation room style meeting on the bus after the game, because we got absolutely throttled. I think it was 4.
Yeah, it was 4,
Could have been 10. Then we played Spartans, I think, the next game. We were really shocked at how good they were, how far ahead they were. 2-0 down again after maybe like 6 minutes.
6 minutes, yeah.
Get beat 4. Then I think it was Stennismuir who were top of the league. But then we started to but we kind of decided it was try and stop the bleeding. But then I think we kind of decided after Spartans that it was like, no, well, listen, if we're going to get beat, then
do it our way.
We'll get beat our way.
Yeah.
And I think it just took time to embed that in the training pitch as well. You know, the first week leading up to the East Fife game, we didn't really get any time on the training pitch. You know, the session on the Tuesday was cancelled due to the weather. On the Thursday, the PFA were in, and then the SPFL were doing this Christmas themed song. So we didn't get out the training pitch till I think it was like 7:30. So, you know, we actually only really had 45 minutes of work that we could actually put into the players.
One thing we hate is Christmas themed songs at training.
I know.
In case you never noticed
you didn't like any interruptions to your training time. You know, you like your dedicated training time. So,
yeah, I think for us, like that's where you put the work in, is it? And you know, you got boys dancing about the change room to Silent Night.
Yeah,
you know, when
especially downbeat Christmas songs. You know,
exactly. Trying to recreate your favourite Christmas film.
It's quite reflective, Silent Night. So it was, you know, but. Anyway, we'll come to that later, maybe.
The public can make the call on that one.
Exactly. But no, like the training time is so important, Chris. Like, you know, we only get 3.5 hours a week really on the training pitch when you're taking away your warm up time, your cool down time, and then the time that's allowed for, you know, mini games or, you know, 11v11 tactical game at the end. So your time is so restricted and limited on the training pitch, and it takes time to implement the detail that you really want to get into the players, and that was certainly the case at the start. But, you know, the players were so ingrained to play in one way, and we came in and, you know, we're asking them to take their line, you know, 15, 20 yards higher. We're asking them to go and press and lock people into certain areas of the pitch and look to replicate certain pressing traps. And I think it just took a while for the players to gain confidence from what we were asking them to do was the right approach based on what they had believed was the only way that they could play. And it was a Stenhousemuir game. You know, we'd worked on it. You know, we'd actually got some good time on the training pitch. And it was a performance where I think that was a game for the players mentally that they came away from that game. And okay, we lost the game 2-0, and maybe from an attacking sense we didn't affect the game in the manner that we wanted to. But from a pressing point of view and sitting in that mid-block, you know, they were really effective at it and caused, you know, a lot of problems that Stenhousemuir had to solve on the day. And I think that was the turning point for the players where they thought, you know what, this could actually work, and they were starting to believe in it. And then I think after that we played Stranraer and Peterhead back to back, and you know that got us the 2 wins, and you know we were just off and running from there. And you know we then went on and had a really good second half of the campaign.
And obviously when you got to January, you were able to get a couple of new faces in. Lyle being one of them, who's, you know, I think fans love him. He's been a revelation. But I mean, were you always going to go back to Huntly and look to take a couple of their players? And you also brought Danga in at the same time as well, because he'd worked with them. And
yeah, we were always going to try and go. Yeah, listen, we know from Lyle from Aberdeen, and Lyle went to Bucky, I think, first. Or Brecon first.
Bucky first, then Brecon.
Couldn't get a game, went to Brecon, didn't happen for him. Either broke his ankle or had an ankle issue.
A fracture, I think, was
and
it?
then we signed him with a fractured ankle.
He said that, and that was a real vote of confidence. He was to sign a player with a broken ankle, not knowing how, you know, it was going to work out of that.
Yeah, but listen, like, Lyle just needed people to believe in him and to allow him to make mistakes and say, no, make 5 mistakes, you're still going to play. Yeah, I mean, you watch him every week, he's just a great player, and he's a great boy.
Yeah.
From a good family, and works his backside off. Maybe he disagrees with half the things we say, but he certainly doesn't show it. Does whatever you ask of him. And to be honest, you know, without trying to butter him up too much, you know, for me, I'm pretty critical. He's cruised it. In my opinion, cruised it, and looks like he can, you know, one day probably go again.
But you've got some good types in your squad now. I mean, really, boys who've played at a good level and could get back to that, but they're all good types, you know.
Yeah, look, the one thing that I'll say and happily put on record is that, you know, the group of players in the Elgin City changing room are by far the best that I've worked with in my coaching career so far. You know, it's very rare that you get a group of, you know, 20 plus players that are so together in terms of their unity and the spirit that they have and the way that they look after and protect each other, the camaraderie that they have inside the dress room, but the confidence that they show in us and that they give us, and that we try and give them in return. You know, I think the club are really lucky from, you know, where they were maybe just a year ago, and where the players are now. in what they're giving to the football club, and how they're presenting themselves, and how they're playing. I think the club as a whole in the town is really lucky that they've got that type of characters in their dressing room, because they all want the same thing. They're all working towards trying to achieve the same thing. There's no egos, there's no bad eggs, there's no disruptive personalities, and for us it gives us a great foundation to hopefully go and build that into the future, and try and over the long term hopefully generate some form of success.
And if we can quickly just briefly go back to last season, when you obviously were able to get players in January, but you weren't able to fully revamp the squad, was it always in your mind that you were going to have to make a lot of changes in the summer? I mean, because you ended up signing 10 players, I think it was.
Look, I think we know the way that we want to play, and we know the type of team and the identity of what our team looks like, and we know how we need to recruit on that basis. Like, recruitment for us is very methodical. It's not done on a whim where you're just looking at a name of a player and you're thinking he'll do. There's a lot of research goes in, to players that we bring in, and a lot of that is down to the personality above everything else. I'm very heavy, and I know Stefan's the same, that we're very heavy on the type of person that has to come into the dressing room, has to fit the mould of the type of people that we need to work with, because we don't have the luxury where we can sign a player and it doesn't work out, and the next time the window opens we can get rid of them and bring someone else in. We don't have the luxury of operating to that level of budget. We're working to really tight constraints.
So when you're doing your research on a player, does that involve watching videos, speaking to people who know them, other people in the game who've played or worked with them? Is that the level of research?
There's a combination of a few things. We have a scouting team now, and Liam Stewart is the head scout for the football club, who is really, really good. He works with an analytics guy, David, who we've got a robust process behind the scenes. I won't go into detail in terms of what that contains, but there's a process where players are reviewed. They're reviewed a number of times. It then gets put onto a player of interest list that we then have access to as a coaching staff. We then review the data that is on that list. Then, once they're shortlisted, we then take it as a coaching staff and we review the footage of that player. And then, if we want to progress it further, we have discussions with the agent, that sort of thing. So it's not a case of you look at a player and you think, I really like him, he's going to sign. Statistically, they have to fit in terms of the way that we play the game. So we've got data around the way that we want to play, and the numbers that people have to hit. But also they've got performance targets that are driven by like an average metrics of the League 2 standard. Our metrics are slightly different to that. Again, won't go into too much detail. But then there's also
devastated about that, aren't you?
I want to scratch beneath the surface here about the stats and the metrics.
But that's one element of it, right? You've got the data, you've got the stats, but they always only tell you one thing, right?
Yeah.
It's what your naked eye then has to reaffirm everything that's there, and that's where me and Stefan come in. Like, we won't sign a player until me and Stefan have reviewed that player numerous times, and we agree that he fits the mould.
We've got a guy who is in the dark web and goes and finds out all you can actually find about the person, and does like a deep dive into their careers and their background, and
Just looking at us.
I'm never totally sure when you're in the wind up or being serious, but
that's where we found Kyle Garvin.
Is it? Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
It does make,
that makes a lot of sense when you say Kyle.
Funny enough,
Kyle's a
he
great
wasn't
lad,
surprised when you said that just now.
That could make sense, but the 10 signings, I mean, I remember at the time there was a lot of folks saying, that's great, but where's Elgin getting the money for all these players? But having spoken to the chairman and yourselves, it's about careful management, and you did move players out for fees, so you were recouping fees, so it was careful budgeting.
I think I can talk through that so we can really put that myth to bed, because the one thing that we do as a football club is that we operate to a really tight budget that is very well monitored by Stephen Hopes as a financial director and Alan Murray as the chairman. It took many months of careful planning. So bear in mind there was a budget allocated last year. Based on the squad at the end of the season, there were 7 players that ultimately departed the squad from the end of last season. So instantly that's 7 wages that are freed up that fall back into the budget. Then in addition to that, there was, you know, a significant amount of money that was raised from player sales this year. I won't give you the overall number, but, you know, to say that it would be a club record for Elgin City would be an understatement. You know, it was a significant sum of money that came in. And thankfully the board were, you know, understanding of, you know, our request that, you know, for me, player sales always falls back into the transfer budget because it's part of the football budget overall. So wages were freed up. Transfer sales that came in. The Allen's Army Fans Fund, which, you know, was a outstanding gesture from the community and the supporters club, you know, that raised money that allowed, you know, additional money to go into the budget. And then, you know, there was some minor investment put in there as well. You know, from a couple of individuals, which was great. So the challenge now is that, you know, yes, that gave us an enhanced budget from the season before, but it wasn't enhanced by a significant portion of money. Yeah, it was done through careful planning in terms of, you know, recognising where you can free up wages within the players already. It was recognising where you can strengthen the asset value of a player that, you know, could be moved on. And then it's, you know, having the foresight to pre-plan for, you know, knowing that this might happen and then what targets you want to bring in. And then obviously you've got to then speak to the player, you've got to have meetings with the player, meetings with the agent, you've got to then negotiate the wages and the salary, come to an agreement, and then you're able to bring the player in. So yeah, look, it was this summer particularly, and I think Stefan will agree, it was probably the most stressful summer that I think we've had in terms of recruitment. You know, it's a very difficult market to recruit in at the moment, more so with the geographical location at Elgin City. But I always believe that if you have, you know, a professional structure, a clear direction in where you want to take the football club, that, you know, regardless of location, you know, the club can be attractive to people. And I like to think that, you know, we're in that point now where the club is attracting, you know, good players. You look at, you know, Kyle Girvin. I know Jack Murray gets a lot of credit because he's a local boy and people know him. But I think if you look at our signings, every one of them has been a success in their own right. But Kyle Girvin especially, you know, deserves so much credit because I think he's been the unsung hero of the season so far in terms of, you know, he's played 4 different positions now. I think with the various injuries that we've had at specific points of the season, but regardless of where you play him, you know, he plays with so much maturity for someone that's still so young. You know, a lot of aggression. You know, he's a winner. He's a great personality in the pitch. But, you know, going back to like Lyle and what I've said about the rest of the team,
apparently a good personality on a night out as well.
Yeah, I've never experienced that, but yeah, I gather that. And they were down in London.
To get some phone insurance though, like 'cause he keeps losing that.
I'd like to believe he maybe lost a phone in London, but
don't think it was just his phone.
Yeah, I think he lost more than that.
Did he? Oh, right. Okay, we'll not go into that.
Dignity being there.
They all came back from London, though, so that's a positive. You didn't lose any players in London.
Well, we almost did. we almost did, but yeah, we'll save that story for.
Okay, cool.
Let the local hero tell you about that, Liam.
So, I mean, it's one thing to sign all these players, but actually to get them to gel together as a team. But were you confident that they would gel pretty quickly, given the background research you'd done on them?
Yeah, as Alan said before, the core of the dressing room are good lads, and then they seem to enjoy themselves. If they don't, then they're good actors. There's plenty of laughing and joking, certainly within the dressing room. And yeah, we encourage that they go on team day out or night out, whatever it is, every 3 or 4 months. We think that's important. They don't need to go and drink. They don't need to go and do whatever it is they want to do, but it can be, you know, they can go and do anything, and they embrace that thoroughly. That rule, which is good.
That's good because they're all young guys at the end of the day. You know what I mean? They're still young guys,
you can see that on the pitch, and you know, the people, you know, Deshaun obviously coming from London, Dylan coming from Dublin. You've got a few of the Glasgow boys that come up, and then you've got the Aberdeen and Elgin and Inverness boys, and they seem to all get on really, really well. And I think you can see that on the pitch. You know, I think Saturday there was a tough game. And I think, you know, soft touch was a phrase that had been used previously when we first went down there. But I think you could see on Saturday how together the players were, and
they were standing up for each other and rallying round.
All for one and one for all, and all those good things. So listen, they're there's good lads. There's a few in there that need to improve their power, but that's the same as
Stefan being the main culprit of that.
Well, but you do try and foster that, because I mean, there's a lot said about your intensity and the way you prepare and meticulous and that, but you do actually foster a spirit of fun as well, and you both take part in that fun, whether it's on the bus, training field, the kit room, dressing room, whatever.
Yeah, look, a lot of people only really see me and Stefan and the coaching staff on a match day, because a lot of people who are involved in the football club are not visible, through the week at training for whatever reason. So, they maybe don't get the time to really build up that relationship with us. But, people like yourself and G and Cecil and Dave Allen and all these people that are around the club, pretty regularly will see that obviously, we are obsessed about, our careers and, wanting to do well and, being the best that we can. We're obsessed about making sure that the environment that we provide for the players is the best that we can as a management team, but also, what the club can provide for the players, because their welfare is, at the utmost importance for us. But we're very competitive and we're very demanding, and, we want to win. We want to succeed, and we want to do that with Elgin City Football Club. But you can't achieve anything if you don't enjoy the work that you do.
Yeah.
You can't achieve anything if you're not all focused on the same goal, and you can't achieve anything if you're not together. And that is the principles that we embed on ourselves as a coaching staff. We hold ourselves accountable before we hold anybody else accountable. Stefan will tell you the amount of conversations that we have with each other where, we're holding ourselves to account and making sure that, when we're analysing games, the first thing we look at is, have we done everything in our power that has been right? Has it been the right preparation through the week? Has it been the right instruction before the game? Have we made the right adjustments during the 90 minutes? And then after we've looked at that, we'll then look at everything else. But yeah, for me,
after we've decided that we have done everything right,
do you always come to that conclusion?
We will then look at the players.
So you come to that conclusion all the time?
No, not all the time, to be fair.
No, not all
most
the
of the time.
So. 99.9% is what you said. But no, it's we do like a laugh, and we certainly like to wind people up and be part of the camaraderie, and that's just a football environment. We're together with each other, probably a lot more than we are with our families. With the travel commitments, the time commitments that people have to make to this job, and look, if you don't enjoy spending time, together as a club, then we're collectively as a football club, we're not doing something right. So the fact that we do have that spirit, we do have that togetherness, and not only does it show on the pitch, but it clearly shows off the pitch as well. So,
and they work unbelievably hard.
I've seen that. They work so hard. They do.
So they have to get there. Got
to get the balance right.
Yeah.
And you both yourself, you're still quite young guys, and you're quite close to most of the players on age. So is that a different dynamic?
I don't know if the players would say that, to be fair.
Well, certainly Drapes.
Yeah, I mean, like some of the some of the younger boys, the way they talk to us, you would think that we were born in the 50s.
They talk about the olden days and things like that.
Yeah, like
back in the day.
We talk about them quite a lot as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, like I think it wasn't too long ago that we played the game ourselves, and I think like we can relate to the player, and we can relate to what they're feeling at certain moments, and certainly with certain things that we can help them with off the pitch. I think the player that we can relate to that, and I think that's why wherever we've been so far, it's only been Huntly and here since me and Stefan's worked together, but every club that we've been at, we've had that camaraderie with not just the players but the support staff behind the scenes and all the volunteers that give up all their free time to keep the football club running. In the board as well, and people will say that we're demanding. People will say that we demand a lot of people, but I just think that it comes from that passion, comes from that desire to succeed, and it comes from knowing what you need to do to win. Yeah,
that's a good trait to have, though, isn't it? To want to push yourself to be the best you can, whether it's football or just any walk of life, isn't it?
Yeah. And people need to remember as well, and it probably doesn't get mentioned too much. we have the youngest team in the league, and that's not an opinion.
That is a stat.
That is a fact.
That's a confirmed stat, is it? Right.
Well,
Okay.
according to Opta and Y-Scout, that is a fact.
Okay.
So I'm not claiming that we have sat with the calculator and done that, but according to them, that is a fact.
Right.
Yeah, we're not that
marginally ahead, marginally by like 0.3 of a year or whatever. Younger than Edinburgh City. So I think we're the two youngest teams. So people need to remember that as well when the players are on the pitch, and we also need to remember it sometimes in the dressing room when we reference certain things and they don't have a clue what we're talking about. Radios and
aye.
that's why this is being
days
filmed,
before
isn't it?
mobiles. I mean, even now, mobiles. The age of the mobile. I grew up in an era where, when I was at college, I had to phone my mum and dad once a week in a big red phone box. Before there was mobile.
With a fax machine, was it?
We had fax
Something
machines.
like
I started on a typewriter.
Did you?
I'm that old. I was actually talking about this with Ryan the other day in a podcast, and I started on a typewriter and then floppy disks and all that kind of stuff. So, it is a different kind of era. But I suppose football has changed massively in that sense, in terms of the way, the preparation that goes into it. I mean, I was wanting to ask you about your PowerPoint presentations. They're apparently stuff of legend, but I've never actually seen one. But I mean,
I wouldn't believe that.
Do you know? Well, people have waxed lyrical about your PowerPoints.
Yeah,
definitely.
But it's not just like you can have the best PowerPoint presentations in the world and not be able to back it up with reality. It's like
slide 23. A guy actually steps out of the screen.
Is it like 3D interactive?
Yeah. You've got glasses.
Yeah,
now,
you got all this modern technology now. It's amazing what you can do in a PowerPoint these days.
Slide 476.
Right.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, the PowerPoint is just something that's been developed over time and something that we've changed already numerous times. I think since we've been at Elgin, we're constantly refining the way that we work. We're constantly refining the way that we play the game. We've
got to change the buzzwords.
Yeah. Got to make sure that all this corporate talk, we're changing these words all the time. But
do you bring a lot, because you're a project manager, away from football, in oil and gas, yeah? Did you bring a lot of that kind of analytical side of the thing to the way you approach your football game as well?
I think there's a lot of correlation there. Maybe not deliberately, but I think just through my experience in my day job, I think a project manager has to be meticulous. You have to have a lot of forward planning. You have to identify risk in advance and try and pre-plan for what risks may happen, and you've got to carefully manage budgets. So all of those things correlate really well to the role of a football manager. And I think like the preconception about spending a lot of money, this, that, and the next thing. I know how a budget works. I know how a budget operates, and I've got a lot of experience in managing budgets a lot higher than a football one. So it's there's that correlation there, and I think that is probably why I am the way I am, because I do that every day in my day job, and it's just, I guess you just develop that trait over time, don't you? So I would say it's more a subconscious thing than maybe a deliberate one.
Yeah, aye. And you obviously, your day job is football as well, Steph. I mean, you do coaching.
Indeed, yeah.
So you've always been pretty much full-time football?
Yeah. Since I was 16, so I left home at 16 and went to Blackpool and was there for a few years, and normal football story of injuries and whatnot, and back up the road. Was in various, it was a wee bit of the Rangers Academy, Partick Thistle, Blackpool, then back up to Rangers, and various injuries. Cut a long story short, never able to stay fit. Ended up going part-time and studying. Didn't give part-time the respect mentally probably that it deserved, or physically, because I then started going to university with my pals. I'd never drank before, and ended up going out on nights out, and was quite bitter, to be honest, about what had happened to me. Through football, I made all the sacrifices and done everything that was right, and obviously it never worked out.
He doesn't come across as a bitter person now, though, does he, Alan? He's got over that bitterness, is he?
He never talks about his career.
when you probably would have won 4 or 5 European Cups. And it does that. But
he is talking about his football manager achievements there.
And then obviously went into coaching. Done so in England, when you're under 18, they make you do a couple of coaching badges.
Oh, okay. Right.
So yeah, was thrilled about that at the time, and then obviously ended up using them pretty swiftly. Went into Morton and took their under-20s, and then came up to Aberdeen to study, and ended up doing community, academy, women's, and also going all the way through. And I run my own one-to-one and analysis football coaching company. So yeah, we're busy with that on a day-to-day basis, and then very busy with this on a day-to-day basis. So,
did you always know from an early age that you wanted to be a coach and a manager? Because I think you injury kind of cut short your playing career as well.
No. And I was touch wood. I've never sustained a serious injury with football apart from my hamstring. Tore my hamstring. I think it was maybe second last year before I left Fraserburgh. But no, I was the same. I was always wanted to be a PE teacher when I was younger, so that's kind of the direction that when I left school, that was where I wanted my career to kind of take myself. So, as part of going through that qualification at that time, it was the same. Aberdeen, I think, as part of the curriculum, you've got to do your SFA 1.1 and 1.2 coaching badges. So I'd done that, and it was the local coaches at Aberdeen that had kind of delivered the course at the time, and then there was opportunities that then had came up through doing that course to go and work with the Aberdeen community programme at the time. Doing that, I was coaching, like local juvenile teams. I was working with Keswick Park Trust in Fraserburgh as well, which is like a community programme.
Right.
So I was coaching, pretty much since I was 15. Only played amateur football at the time. So I didn't think my career would ever take me, in a direction where I would go on and have a great career. So, coaching was always something that I was wanting to do. Did I think when I was 23, 24 that, I wanted to be a football manager? I didn't. But I wasn't enjoying my football at the time with Fraserburgh. I didn't quite have the respect for maybe the manager at the time in terms of the way that I was man-managed, and I lost my confidence, didn't have a great season, had my hamstring injury that I was struggling to kind of come back from, and I just wasn't enjoying football the same as what I had done when Charlie Duncan was a manager, and I was coaching.
Down tools, Chris.
Did you just
it's down tools, yeah. Fake the injury so I didn't have to play and all of these sort of things. But no, like towards the end of that season, it was the year that Forest won the league, so what was that, 2012, 2013?
Yeah, aye.
I was working with Aberdeenshire Council at the time, between Fraserburgh and Banff every Friday, and I was working with a guy called Gary Mann, based in Peterhead. Again, was coaching through Aberdeen, and he had an opportunity to go and take over at Mod Juniors, and because we were working together on a Friday, he knew I wasn't enjoying my football, and he said, "Oh, look, if I'm away to take this job, do you want to come in as like co-manager, but continue to play as well?" And when you're young and you're immature and you've got arrogance and all this sort of thing, I don't think you really take a step back and think, well, that's maybe not the right thing to do. So it was a big risk. And after 3 months, I think Gary, he had a young kid at the time, he stepped away. So after 3 months of, I'll go and like be co-manager, but really just a player, but like helping out, organised training sessions
after
and stuff.
3 months.
Yeah. Which at 24, managing people that are a lot older than you, was difficult. But again, Weemsy came in as assistant, and we took Mod from second bottom to second in the league, and with a cup final every season. Never won a trophy, but the success and what we built up was really positive. Had a spell at Keith in the Highland League, 2015 to 2017, which was the big takeaway from that was like the learning experience in terms of off the park stuff and how to manage that and that sort of thing, and all the dilemmas that maybe are attached to that. Huntley was great, and that was probably where I started to believe that as we were doing our B and our A licence and working with Stefan, it was like I think the work that we deliver is quite good, and the drive from each other was to push ourselves to be better all the time, and it's setting it up being at Elgin. So but yeah, certainly no injuries, just a stubbornness to get away from a not enjoyable situation, but it's ended up well.
Those kind of experiences, does that shape the way you treat players now yourself, in terms of how you talk to them and how you make them feel? And
100%, yeah. Look, I've I've experienced a lot of bad things in football, you know, with dressing rooms and how players treat each other. I've had bad experiences in terms of, you know, how managers try and motivate their players and use this reverse psychology and poor man management and that sort of thing. And I've also experienced, you know, boards that you know, maybe don't quite have the same beliefs as I do in terms of making sure that the players are always protected and they're always looked after, because, you know, the way I see it is that they're the most important asset of any football club. So far at Elgin, you know, certainly with Allan Murray as chairman, you know, me and him's got a good relationship. You know, we're honest. We talk quite frequently. You know, there's a plan and a strategy there to try and progress, but, you know, to use the words that he's used himself, it has to be measured. It has to be, the ambition has to be realistic, and it has to be sustainable. But we're enjoying it so far, and, you know, there's a lot of hard work ahead of us because we're in a League Two that's so competitive. Where, you know, you look at the league table and how tight it is, and every team is capable of beating everyone else. So, you know, there's no team, and certainly Elgin City, we have no divine right to win any game of football, and we've got no divine right to, you know, be making playoffs or talking about promotion, all that sort of stuff. Like, we have to progress, we have to keep moving forward. And
you mentioned the P word there, Alan. You said it out in full, promotion. Yeah,
but I said we've got no divine right to do it. So don't.
It can.
I mean, all serious, all joking aside, I mean, we'll come on to the unbeaten run and how things have gone, hitting the top of the league, and, you know, the Aberdeen Cup draw in a wee minute. But has the rate of progress made it harder to manage expectations, because, you know, you're still very early into this journey, shall we call it? You know, as a club, with Alan, who's, you know, the other Alan with 1 L. That's how I always remember you. You've got 2 L's, the other Alan's got 1 L, but. Has it made it harder to manage? Is that the only
correlation that you can see between me and the chair?
No, that's just how my simple brain works.
It's just like an L of a difference.
Yes, aye. But does that made it harder to manage expectations?
Yeah, I mean, it's not harder to manage our expectation,
no,
or the players.
Yeah,
it's harder to manage everybody else outside that. Listen, football has been down a road, especially in this country, that is based completely on short-termism. It's not conducive to success at all. Certainly not conducive to long-term success. So people lose sight of the long-term plan when short-term glory sort of comes. So it's very difficult. It's very easy because, you know, East Fife a year ago is forever fresh in our memory. Yeah. So it's not difficult for us to keep our feet firmly on the ground. But certainly, listen, I sound like I'm the Grinch, you know what I mean? But fans deserve to be excited, and that's part of being a fan.
Yeah.
But there is also lunacy. So, like, you know, people say, every game's a must-win game, and it's this and it's that. That's just not reality.
Yeah.
And we've got to keep the players grounded in reality. The club is doing really well. The players are doing unbelievably well.
Yeah.
They are outstripped every single expectation that anybody who's even heard of Elgin City would have had for them a year ago, 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So people need to remember that. The reality is that we don't have the funds or the structure of the other top 4 teams in the league. So
and is that just fact? That's a fact. That's a hard fact, yeah.
So, like Alan says, the club has no divine right to be in those positions. They can be in those positions based on everybody working to their absolute maximum. Things like injuries and all that stuff come into it. But it won't happen anyway, because we're not good enough away from home. We don't score enough goals. We don't have a good enough squad. We're not experienced enough, and all those other things.
You obviously don't believe it, but that's what a lot of people are saying. Yeah,
the general consensus. Who am I to go against the general consensus?
Yeah, aye. The unbeaten run, that was a great thing. It was a club record, and it will forever be there unless your current team or a future team goes and breaks it. But was that difficult to manage at the time? The fact every game,
No,
6 unbeaten, 7 unbeaten, 8 unbeaten.
No, it was not difficult to manage at all, because the only people that was paying any attention to it was people like yourself, Chris.
You were the main conductor of that
in the media. Like
we've got to put people off into a fret,
No, look, that's what journalism is all about. You paint a story, and you've got to create your headlines that is going to sell papers. Whether it's nationally or locally, right?
I don't sell papers anymore.
Not anymore.
That game, no.
You never used to sell them either.
No, that's why I left. We'd stop selling newspapers. Nobody was buying them, so I'm now just interested in YouTube views and Facebook likes and all that kind of stuff.
Shorts,
stats,
clips, that is not
analytics. I'm getting
not the things that you wear.
You'll be fighting KSI next year on Misfits.
I'll be what?
Yes.
But yeah, no, the run wasn't difficult to manage at all. It was, we are very much a club that just focus week to week, and once one game's finished, an hour after that, we'll do the debrief the Sunday, and then we'll deliver an analysis on the Tuesday to the players about the game at the weekend. But then after that, it's all the training session on the Tuesday is all geared up to the next game.
Okay.
We don't study league tables. We don't study, too much far ahead of ourselves. We just look at the next game, focus on that one, and then once that one's done, focus on the next one. It's it's maybe the boring answer and the cliche answer, but it's the reality and it's the truth. We don't. I think what I would say is that the players deserve the utmost credit for what they've achieved, because it's no easy feat, especially in a 10-team league, to go 11 games unbeaten. What's not talked about is the last 4 games of that was crippled by an injury crisis that is only getting worse.
Yeah.
But the players, because of the camaraderie and the trust that we have in each other, we don't talk about that either. We just focus on preparing the team and trying to win the game. But psychologically, like whatever happens, like until that record is broken, which it will be at one point, is that the players have created a little bit of history for themselves. And when all over the last 3 years that have been talked about them, is every single comment that was laboured their way was all criticism, was all negative, was all things that they can't do and that they don't care, this, that and the next thing. Well, the players have shown, certainly since we've taken over, that they do care. And they are fully committed to the football club, they're fully committed to each other. And, They deserve the accolades for what they've achieved, because it's not easy to go 11 games unbeaten. And as I said, they're in the history books, and psychologically for them, it's a big thing, because it shows that, as an individual that they're good players, and it shows as a team that they're capable of putting good results together. And that gives us the confidence moving forward. And, the last few weeks with injuries and things like that has been really tough. We had a real big setback last week down at East Fife with the 97th minute winner, but we as a staff have taken so much confidence for the way that the players have navigated the season so far. There's been a lot of difficult moments that maybe hasn't had the exposure that other teams have had, probably because we've still been winning games and picking up results. And the players continue to exceed expectations in terms of what people put on them. And to me, when you're working with a group of players that have that mindset, that focus and that steely determination, then you're winning in my eyes. And we'll go on a bad run, of course we will at some point.
Yeah, it's inevitable, isn't it?
But we will always stick together, and we'll have the utmost trust in the players, and regardless of when we lose 3 or 4 games in a row, which will definitely happen, we will still continue to put the trust in them.
The biggest change for that is, like, with the unbeaten run and stuff, is that it gives the players a wee bit more confidence in the methods and all that kind of stuff, and then they just run with it, right? But we're big on accountability, and you spoke about maybe like things that we've taken from our own past, and accountability are a big thing in both our from our families. My dad's been involved in reasonably high level of football in different roles for a long time. He sure as hell held me accountable for my performances and training on the pitch and stuff growing up. And then different heads of youth I was under at Rangers, George Adams, all these people thinking down to Blackpool. It's about accountability. So on a Tuesday, when we do our own self-analysis, there can be a lot of accountability and individual chats, and that can be uncomfortable, and especially you've got to watch how you deal with the young players now in terms of that, because they're not as hard into that as we were. But I think the change that we see now is that we have to do that less and less, because the players do it themselves.
So
people like Russell, Draper, Salty, Cooper, even some of the young, Aiden that's came in from Kilmarnock, he takes no prisoners as well in the dressing room. And once you see players starting to do that, there was a big moment after the Edinburgh City game at home when we lost the free kick in the last minute. We didn't really have to say anything in the dressing room after a couple of players took over and made everybody.
You've seen that shift that they've
I think we both walked out the dressing room, told the players we were not happy and blah blah blah. But when we got back into the office, we thought, we might do all right this year, based on the character of what's going on in the dressing room. So that is a big change from what was here initially.
Just for the fans, explaining the way you approach games. You mentioned there your analysis. So on a Tuesday at training, what does that involve? Do you do video analysis of the previous games?
Of us.
Of us. So we'll debrief the performance on the Saturday. So once the game's uploaded, generally a Sunday or a Monday, me and Stefan will watch the game back. Not together, obviously, separately on the through Y Scout, and then we'll talk through the game. Things that we've saw, and then it'll get clipped up
based on what we're working on, as well, and what we're trying to do.
All based around our principles and that sort of thing. And then we'll clip it down, present it to the players in terms of things that we do well, that we've done really well in the game, things that we haven't done so well and where we need to improve, which sometimes will lead into the training session on the Tuesday.
Right.
And then on the Thursday night, it's we'll do analysis on the opposition that we're facing on the weekend. Again, just gives them an overview of things that we've identified through watching the footage. And again, it's all related to how we then translate the game and how it then correlates into what our match plan is for the weekend. And again, the Thursday night typically, it's maybe been tailored a wee bit with injuries that we've had recently, but typically a Thursday session would always be, kind of layering in your match plan and what you're going to ask for the players at the weekend, which you see because you're there in person pretty regularly. So you get.
So you do a lot of match specific, shaping to some of your drills, yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Which you know yourself because
you don't. I did film one of them early doors where I had a player interviewed and I had one of your specific training drills in the background, so I had to go and re-edit that. But it's a learning curve. Life's a learning curve, isn't it?
I'm glad you've recovered from that.
We're all learning every day, Chris. That's for sure. Exactly. There's things we learn every day. That's for sure.
So do you you edit your own match packages and edit them into, presentable packages for the players, yeah?
Yeah. Steph will give you an overview of what that involves, but, we don't have the budget where, we can have a support staff of 10 people. I would love to because, it would free up my time and give me some time back that I can spend more time with my wife and my kids, which, it's just so accommodating because we spend so much hours on the laptop and on the phone and that sort of thing, and you miss a lot of things, especially when your kids are growing up, that you've got to make a lot of sacrifices to be at this level. That's something that in the long term hopefully we can get to a point where we can have an analyst, we can delegate these things to, but it's actually, sadly enough, it's the part of the game that we actually really enjoy, is dissecting the game and watching the game, because I think for a tactical point of view, for us, that's where we do a lot of learnings on ourselves, and certainly in the opposition as well. But
so do you utilise technology quite a lot in that respect, and in terms of videos and stats and whatnot?
I was lucky enough to sort of, when I finished playing and through coaching, I've been around a lot of different top clubs and go and watch them and observe them and see what they do and different managers and see how much of that they look on, and the tactical side of it is for our players, not coaches. For players in this country, for me, it's where we're behind. I think the general tactical intelligence of a player in Scotland, generally, not all the time, is lower than a Dutch player or a Spanish player or a French player. They just spend more time on it, and I think they absorb more information. I think we're always very conscious of not overloading all the time, which we definitely do. But for like the analysis stuff that we do, to not get into too much detail, like we'll just look at obviously the team we're playing, their form, their past, if there's any patterns within that we think are relevant to the players. Obviously the conditions that we'll be playing in, the key players, If we have to stop certain people to make certain things happen, how are we going to do that? What conditions can we create that we can prove that they don't operate as well in?
Right.
And then obviously we're looking for patterns in their no different from our team.
Yeah,
We're looking for patterns in their play. How can we stop that? But then we're looking at how can we exploit weaknesses that we can see, and we will then run through those scenarios meticulously. I mean, generally, probably before like a game, like a normal league game, we will have watched in full 4 games of the opposition.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, based on who's playing and all that kind of stuff. But listen, you can do all that stuff. All you can do is prepare. When you cross the white line, it's up to you to go and exploit it. Yeah. And the real difference between a good player and a top player is, can they recognise that scenario that they've been pointed out in real time? Can they then make the right decision? Because what should be going on in their head is like a multiple choice. Can they make the right decision at the right time? Do they have the technique to execute it? And then do they have the composure and the mentality to actually follow it through? Yeah. So there's a lot of individual things that are down to the player.
Yeah.
And we can only prepare them as best we can. But at the same time, I'm now labouring it, as I've said I shouldn't be. But like at the same time, you don't want to. I worked a lot in academy football. I think we coach a lot of the ability out of people.
Right, okay.
I think it's too methodical. It's too slow. It's too all these things. So again, you don't want to overload people with robotic information that takes the choice away from them. My choice might not be the best choice. They're their own players. So you have to allow a certain amount of freedom.
Yeah, so there's a balance to be struck in that respect.
Yeah, which is difficult, and it's based on the player, and that's where Allan obviously comes in to manage the individual player. If we were talking about, you have to cover this certain amount of distance to play in this team. Well, if you score 30 goals a season, maybe you might get a wee bit of leeway in that, and all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, we don't have anybody scoring 30 goals a season.
No,
so they're not getting any leeway.
But you've got a lot of people scoring a lot of goals. I mean, you
15 different goal scorers, Chris.
15, that's almost the whole squad. That's you're sharing the goals about.
It's got the goalkeeper. No, one of the goalkeepers has scored. So,
aye. And when you talk about there the preparation you go into, that's where you build up, the hours and how much time goes on behind the scenes to that. And I mean, I'm conscious of the fact you're both young guys, you've got young families. What do you do, or can you switch off from football? Or what do you do to switch off? And you have to get some quality time with families and that as well. So what do you actually do away from football when you're on these 2-hour conversations?
Yeah, it's very rare that you get. There's no such thing as switching off when you're a football manager. You just can't. I remember being on holiday earlier on during pre-season, and I was on the phone every single day because there was 3 players that we were trying to sign. It was at the time where Deshaun, Dylan, and who else was it? Kyle Garvin was all kind of kicking off at the same time.
Right.
And I always think as a football manager, when you're trying to sign a player, you've only got a small window in which you can go and execute, make the offer, do the negotiation, and get the player to come. If you don't, and you're competing with other clubs, which we were, and all of these players, if you don't, execute at that moment, you run the risk of not getting that player in. So, I was over in Spain with my family, and I was on the phone for, a couple of hours at a time on a couple of occasions, and that can be quite difficult because you do feel guilty because you take through the year you miss out on so much thing, and you don't neglect your family because you never would, but you don't give them as much time as you want to, and you feel guilty for it because you're working all day every day. Then you're travelling, so you're away out the house at 6:15 in the morning. You're not then getting home till midnight. You're then up and out the door again at 6. So you can go almost 2 full days without seeing your wife and your kids, and that's tough. But at the same time, the family also understand that this is what you love doing, and what you need to do, and they're very accommodating. So all of the spare time that we have goes to my wife and my kids because they deserve that time, and they get that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And yourself, you've got your family as well, Stefan. Yeah?
I do, yeah. I've got he's been about 20 months now, my wee boy, and my fiance, obviously. So Yeah, Megan was involved in football, so she played
Okay.
for sort of Aberdeen Scottish youth teams and all that kind of stuff when she was younger. So yeah, a wee bit of understanding there. Like, so there's a good chance when I go home at night, she will be watching
Football.
a football match.
Okay.
Whether she's then thrilled about then watching Elgin City match, I don't know, but she watches it, and everyone will be delighted. All the players will be delighted when she gives her unfiltered opinion on what's going on, which is good. No, so listen, I'm very, very lucky in that regard. What do I do for like enjoyment?
Yeah, just like
watch football. Which with the teams I support is becoming less and less enjoyable by the week. My brother's involved in the entertainment film industry in Los Angeles, so I like watching I like going to the movies, the pictures, of course, we would call it from where I'm from. Get to do that less and less, obviously, because my wee boy's not massively keen about sitting through Gladiator 2 for 2.5 hours. But I collect football boots, I collect cigars. That's about it, yeah. I'm a very refined guy, Chris.
Yeah.
As you can probably tell, yeah.
You just throwing a curveball in there, I didn't see that. Cigars.
I collect for football. I like collecting football boots, so different Predators and exclusive boots, the new or the boots that Ronaldo wore in the 2002 World Cup final for Brazil. They got re-released yesterday, so got them. So that's an exclusive for Megan as well. I got them.
Excellent.
So she'll be delighted about that.
A lot of folk collect whiskey and things. Like, is this for future investment, or is this like a pension savings thing? Collecting boots. I mean, will they be worth? Did they accumulate value?
The boots are worth a lot of money. Yeah. So those boots yesterday have doubled in price already. But yeah.
All right.
But obviously, I'll just display them all, and then when my sons.
Did you have a dedicated room at home to all these things? Or do you have a football room? Or?
Well, yeah, I do have but they're all in boxes and not quite got round to making the effort of actually displaying them. I'm just obviously being a bit of an arse there, but like when nobody's worn them, so it wouldn't be much of a display. But when my son's making his debut for the biggest team in British football, then I'll let him pick whichever pair he wants to wear.
Right. Who has the biggest team in British football? Just for clarification,
we all know exactly who that team is. We don't need to get. We don't need to get down that.
Let's not get in an argument.
Let's not lower the tone of the conversation. Just when we're talking about big teams in British football, very briefly touch on the game that it's coming up in January, Aberdeen. I know you've got some big games before then, but I mean. That's going to be massive, and as an Aberdeen fan, you putting yourself up against Jimmy Taylor's team is going to be just something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for the football club. It's it's not about me at all. It's about the football club, and the players have earned the right to enjoy the occasion. They've came through 2 really difficult ties. They deserve to get to play in front of a sellout crowd, and I hope that that's what they can achieve. And I'm sure they will, with the pre-planning that'll go in and everything like that. But look, it's going to be a great day. We're going to prepare. We're going to give it our best shot, and we'll enjoy the day. But that's all I'll say in it just now.
Yeah,
we've got 6 massive games ahead of us, I think. So, or 5 or 6.
I think it's 6.
6.
Is it 6?
So
yeah.
It's exciting, isn't it, for everybody?
It is. It's great.
It's going to be tough. Obviously, tough week for Aberdeen as well, because they've got Rangers on the Wednesday, and they'll obviously have to rest a few players in that game because they're playing us on the Saturday. So,
of course. Well, there you go. See, you've been thinking ahead on this. We touched briefly on that. You've mentioned injuries a few times, and I don't want to dwell on that because it is what it is, and you have to cope with it. But I mean, in terms of the number of injuries, it seems a bit bonkers just how many players you've had out at the same time and for lengthy periods.
They're all match injuries, and
it's
never seen anything like it, to be perfectly honest. So
I mean, I've been involved in football, since I was 15, playing at Fraserburgh, so between the Highland League and now League 2. I've never came across any squad, not just squads that I've been involved in, but I've never came across any squad that's had, I think today we're 11, 10, 11.
10, 11.
So you've got a whole team.
11, because one of the young players is in there, so it's 11 for today.
So, it's unprecedented, and it kind of goes back to the point that I was talking about the last 3 months of last season, where we were talking about the pre-planning for the summer window and how I kept going on about the fact that we needed depth to the squad because, when we took over, there was a real imbalance to the squad. There was an overload in certain positions, but there was only, at 4 or 5 positions in the team, there was only 1 or 2 players maximum available for that position, whereas now we've tried to get a better balance of the squad. Obviously, the budget dictates that there's still 1 or 2 positions in the squad that we maybe don't have any cover for.
Yeah.
But between the board and ourselves, we've certainly worked really hard in the window. And but yeah, this is, as I said, it's been quite. This week especially, I think has been quite difficult because we've already got that volume injuries, but then a couple have then had setbacks this week. We've had Kyle and Gal who then got injured. We've had one of the young players then pulled up on Thursday, and then we've had another player in the squad that then came off with an injury on Thursday. So there's 11, potentially 12, depending on the fitness test that we'll do when we get the ground. And that's difficult for any squad. Struggles without 3 or 4 top players. But if you look at that 11 or 12 players in isolation, 6 of those players, maybe 7 of those players, were all starting
No, I think
games for us before we got
Gordon
injured.
said at training on Thursday that from the first game of the season here against East Fife, that there's 7.
Yeah.
From the
7
11.
from the 11
Yeah.
that are injured.
And then Jack Murray went and selfishly got booked last week as well, so he's suspended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
He'll probably still get man of the match today.
he said, the fans love him. Everybody loves him. But in all seriousness, that he was a marquee signing in terms of dipping into the Highland League. Him and Sarge, they're no bigger than any other signings, but in terms of a statement, getting Jack was a big signing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and it was something that would earmarked for months. Was it? Ever since we took over, we knew. I think I presented a list of players to the board when I done that big PowerPoint presentation that you.
His third hat trick against Huntley was the final straw. We decided we're fed up playing against us.
Yeah. he did score a lot of late goals against us, annoyingly, from set pieces and such like. But no, he was certainly one that we'd earmarked, and obviously there's a finance related to that because he's attached to a long-term contract, and look, it goes back to what I said earlier about being clever in terms of recognising the asset value and maximising the asset value that you can get for the players that we sold. And I won't name any names, but there was one player that was sold and we managed to sign Jack Murray and Ryan Sargent for the same level of money that we took in for one player. Okay. So it balanced off really well, and
and that's not necessarily something the fans would see or think would be the case. They'd just see big signings coming in and think, well, they must be costing a bit.
Yeah.
And you would never recoup the same amount of money. But so, that's interesting to know that.
And goes back to what Stefan said about that, short-mindedness where people just look at a signing and think, Elgin have now got a lot of money and they're splashing a lot of money. And, I think even the chairman and the board would be insulted if they thought that because, I think if you look at the state of Scottish football in general at the moment and the volume of teams that are going in administration, one thing I can, tip my hat off to the chairman about is that he will never allow Elgin City to spend more money than what it can afford to spend.
No.
And he's a successful businessman in his day job. Stephen Hopes is, runs his own accountancy firm. So, between them and the board in general, they'll never allocate more money than what's there. In the same token, it's our job to try and maximise that as best we can because,
this is an official Christmas appeal.
Does that
to Allan
crowdfunding
to
appeal?
Live a wee bit more less sustainably in
Allan's
January,
Army
maybe
2.0, is it?
Yeah. But no, look, we've had the discussion about January, and we're at the point now where if we get any more injuries, we can't field a team. That's how serious the injury situation is.
And if we had a massive budget that people would maybe think from that, like Alan's saying, then we wouldn't be in the scenario that we're in today.
Yeah,
there are free agents out there. That we could go and sign.
Yeah.
If we had the money to to go and sign them. And there are clubs in our league that players get injured. There's another player in the next day, and that, listen, more power to them, because we would do the exact same if we were.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, on the budget side, I mean, Cali, Dumbarton, Clyde have even posted an appeal. They need to raise some money as well for, to cover debts. So I mean, it's something you've got to balance for clubs to be here for the future.
Yeah, I think like the club licensing now, puts a lot of pressure on clubs to, improve their infrastructure, which on one hand is trying to make the landscape of Scottish football a lot more professional and get clubs acting, a lot more professionally in terms of, the processes and procedures that they have to implement behind the scenes to make sure that the operations day to day are running smoothly and are slick. And every club we've been at, Maud, Keith, Huntly, Elgin, we've all had to operate to really tight budgets. And as I said, I'll go back to the point, we're a project manager in my day job, and, operate, multi-million-pound budgets every day, for my projects. And, it's also my job to, I've got a budget, but it's also my job to look at opportunities where you can, try and squeeze a little bit more. And, that's just what every manager does.
Yeah,
some will demand a lot louder than others.
And we've been lucky as well. People like Derek McInnes at Kilmarnock have helped us out big style. So.
Yeah, huge. And but yeah, look, we know what the plan is, with the club and the board, and we'll have conversations on a daily basis. In terms of the forward plan, I will reiterate again. It has to be realistic. The ambitions have to be tailored, and it has to be sustainable. But we will always certainly push, because ultimately we want to succeed, and our job as a manager, we are judged on winning games of football, and the supporters and everyone judges us on games of football. But in order to succeed and achieve the things that everyone wants to achieve in the game, you need financial support in order to do that as well. So
in terms of, I mean, at the moment you're second in the league, but in terms of realistic ambitions and managing expectations, you're 17 points clear of the relegation playoff. So is that a positive?
It's just well spun there, Chris. You're learning.
We're 20 points away from what would be statistically the normality to stay up.
20 points.
Yeah, about 17 to 20.
That's still another 7 wins in. But
17 to 20. Yeah. What are we on? 26.
26.
Yeah.
So yeah,
bottom team's 40. On 9.
Yeah, 40 points is usually, if you look at the historical league tables in League 2, 40 points has generally been enough, is it?
And then the deal is, obviously, the board has told us that when we get to 40, spend.
Right, okay.
He's woke up again.
Aye.
He's just had a few gins last night. But so no, in all seriousness, Chris, the whole club is working together, and, we all know what we're working towards, and we all know in order to get to where we want to be, we know what we need to have available to. And Allan, as I said, Allan, since he's came in, has been fantastic, and a lot of things have improved behind the scenes. And sometimes these things take time and they take a little bit longer, but as long as we keep working together and we keep talking, and we're all seeing the progress on and off the pitch, then we'll be happy.
Yeah, and Alan's a football man as well. He's been involved in football all the years, and he's just a normal guy. You can have a laugh and a joke with him and a bit of banter as well, which is important. Yeah,
you need that as well. It's not all serious. You need to have that time. And it's important that you get to know each other. It's not I get to know the chairman, and the chairman gets to know the manager and the assistant manager. At the end of the day, we're normal people. We're normal human beings. The personalities that you see from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock on a Saturday are not who we are in real life. You've got to act a certain way as a manager, and that's not who we are in reality as people. So yeah, that's important. And the chairman is a really personable guy. He's trustworthy. He's honest. And he's got the same morals that we do in terms of it's about looking after people and making sure that the players are getting the best environment that they can. not just on the pitch and, you know, contracts and stuff. It's about, you know, the medical care and the medical attention, you know, all these little things that for me can really improve an environment, and you can offer that to a player. So maybe, you know, what you're lacking in terms of a budget, you know, you can offer through other things, and yeah, we'll certainly try, and there's still a long way to go with certain things, but there's that recognition, and, you know, we're working together, and it's been really good so far.
Excellent. I'm conscious of time, and because we're recording this on game day, so need to let you get to Borough Briggs soon, but just a quick last word on the fans after games now. I mean, it's great to see the way the players are interacting with the fans at the end of games, and yourself on the pitch going and applauding the fans, and you know, there's a special connection there already.
Yeah, I think for us, Chris, you know, I think that the being part of a management team in senior football is a very lonely job, right? When you're winning games of football, everyone's going to be happy with you. When you win games of football, everyone thinks you're useless and you don't know what you're doing, and, you know, things like that. And people that have no football qualifications, you know, always like to tell the people that are well experienced in qualifications.
Get back to Huntley.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Spartans game. You know, we were only in the job a week, and we were losing 3-0 at half time to Spartans, and, you know, I was getting shouted at by the main stand to get back to Huntley, you know, and
I was shouting at him.
You were saying, Alan, we should get back to Huntley.
He did say that a couple of times, right enough, but so that's the fickle nature of football supporters, and but look, it's good, you know, we've been on a good run, and what I would say is that I definitely think there's a connection now, and I think the connection comes from what the players are providing on the pitch, and you know, for me, I'm a football fan myself, right? I go to Pittodrie when I can, you know, big Arsenal fan, you know, and I watch a lot of football, and you connect with a team when you see the team playing with commitment, they play with energy, they work really hard. You know, you see constantly the comments online that this team just don't give up. This team don't know when they're beaten, and that's really good traits to have. And I think supporters connect with that rather than connect as us as individuals. And, you know, when it's good when you win, and you can get to have those little moments with the supporters where, you know, you can do a little celebration down in the corner. But I'm pretty sure when we lose 3 or 4 games in a row that the eggs will be getting thrown at us, and the tickets will be getting thrown on the ground and stuff like that. So I say to the players all the time, you know, enjoy winning, because, you know, there's a lot of highs and lows in football, and, you know, don't get too high when you win, don't get too low when you lose. But certainly when you're on that wave where things are going well, you've got to enjoy it. And at the moment, everyone's enjoying it, and hopefully it can continue.
I think this is win or lose, Chris, an entertaining Elgin team.
Very entertaining.
And the people of Elgin will be entertained if they come and watch them.
Yep.
So let's challenge the fans to get 1,000 people in the ground.
And to quote a famous line from Gladiator, are you not entertained?
Close the curtains. There you go, Chris. Well done.
Quote a famous line from Robbie Williams: "Let me entertain you," for going through all these cliches. But no, like, this is a public appeal to all the school children in Elgin and Murray and all the local schools, is please get your mum and dad to get you a ticket for Borough Briggs on a Saturday. Come and support the team, you know, because the team are doing a lot, and you know, they deserve to, you know, one of our objectives is to try and get a regular gate of 1,000 people in the gate, and I think, you know, these group of players certainly at the moment, you know, would certainly respond really well to that. So
nothing would deserve that kind of crowd as well, you know, really and truly. I don't think it can be too far away if you keep improving the way things are.
Hopefully not. And you know, success breeds success, right? So if you're doing well on and off the pitch, you know, and the more people talk positively about the football club and around the community, then the more appeal it's going to have, and the more footfall that will come through the gate. So, you know, the more people we can get, the better, because it helps the club, it helps the business of the football club, and it helps to generate positive cash flow, which then helps to increase our budget, and it helps us have the best possible chance to be successful. But yeah, so far it's really good. It's a great club full of great people. You know, some of the volunteers like Cecil and things like that, you know, you get a really good laugh with them, and you know, the fan base is good, it's consistent, you know, 750, good atmospheres, but we'll all strive to keep making it better.
Good stuff, Magic. Right, we'll have a nice Christmas with your families. Make sure you enjoy that. And then hopefully a few wins on the board by the end of the year and see where it goes.
Yep. Hopefully. You too, Chris.
Right. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So my thanks to Steph and Alan. And you've been listening to the Borough Briggs Speak.
You're going to sing us out by singing Silent Night?
I think the players should play us out with what you done at training there.
Well,
I think that'd be a nice
clip that on at the end, yeah. Aye.
I thought you'd have came pre-prepared with a Love Actually, another scene from Love Actually, like what you try to replicate on Thursday.
Yeah, I don't know how well that worked or not, but...
I thought Wet, Wet, Wet was maybe going to get introduced at one point,
This is going down a road there.
We'll just...
Once everyone sees a video, they'll understand
they'll understand what we're talking about. I did put a short out.
No, I did.
A little festive short,
just
to tease them. So.
Russell and Ollie, I think if you can raise their volume within the song, I thought they were really good. So.
They're quite good
Deshaun as well,
voices.
he was,
Aye, Desh.
He had the falsetto out, I think.
Russell's good at everything.
Yeah.
Russell, he's
player.
an all-rounder, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just an all-rounder.
All-round great guy.
Aye, brilliant.
Had to get that in before we finished.
Excellent,
So,
good
yeah.
stuff. Right, we'll knock it on the head there. We'll put the elf on the shelf now, and I'll let you get off to Borough Briggs for Stirling, and we'll see you later.
Thank you. You're paying our fine because we're late, by the way.
See you in 15 minutes, Chris.
Okay. Cheers. Thanks very much.
Cheers.